This is Brent, and in this video we're doing one of our more advanced core exercises. I'm actually really excited about this. My friend Vinny is going to come out in a second and he's going to tell you all about this exercise. Just a little change on our bridge makes this a whole lot more work for our glutes and core, and I think you guys will see why in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is just demonstrate the basics for our ball bridge, because that's where this exercise starts. We've actually already done a video on the ball bridge, so you guys could refer back to that just to kind of pick up a couple extra cues. All right, so when we set up the ball bridge, we want to make sure that this ball is in the middle of our back, not our neck, not on our low back. All right, and that when he is in the finish position, pelvis up, that his head should relax in the ball in neutral. So let me have you scoot down just a little bit. Perfect, right there. Good. Now, Vinny, let's go ahead and hip hinge. Note that your torso should stay in one piece. So as he's going down, his head should come off the ball just like that. You guys can see he keeps nice alignment, head, shoulders, spine. Make sure you cue drawing in on the way down. Our tummies tend to want to pop out. We want to keep them drawn in. Glutes tight on the way back up. So guys, that's our basic ball bridge. You guys have seen that before. We then did a progression where we did a static ball bridge with some trunk rotation. Now what we're going to do is a dynamic ball bridge with rotation. Now this increases the amount of glute activity for a few reasons. I'm going to give you guys a little kinesiology lesson here. If I apply a little bit of a force this way, I now have a rotary force that I have to eccentrically decelerate, as well as a frontal plane force, all right, so that's straight that way, that I have to eccentrically decelerate. Your glute max is not only an extensor, but an external rotator. If I push this way, I'm pushing this hip into internal rotation. I'm also pushing this way, which is creating a frontal plane force. If you guys can think of your anatomy here, your gluteus medius is what resists adduction and internal rotation. So by pushing this way, I'm pushing him into adduction and internal rotation. His glute max is going to have to push him through extension and external rotation. His glute med is going to have to push him through abduction and external rotation. So with just the tiniest bit of force, if Vinny can maintain his center line, so we're going to draw an imaginary line from his nose through his pecs, right between his knees, and does that bridge, keeping his shoulder at 90 degrees, that right glute is going to start firing up like crazy. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's take a couple more reps here. Now I know I'm applying some resistance manually. That's just to help demonstrate for you guys. I'm actually going to turn Vinny around here in a second. Good. How does that feel, Vinny?
Yeah.
You're feeling it? Good. All right, so let's have you go ahead and turn this way so we can show some of the other mechanics, show that other view. All right, so instead of manual resistance, we're going to use a band now. Obviously, I want my athletes, my clients, my patients to be able to do this without my assistance. So I'm going to give Vinny this band. It takes a slight amount of force, guys. We're not talking about huge amounts of weight. All right, not that I'm trying to brag or that my numbers necessarily mean anything, but I can tell you guys I'm a 220-pound guy. I've been working on these for a little while. I was very excited to get myself up to 15 pounds on a dual cable column, maybe 20 pounds on a dual cable column. Just the tiniest bit of weight to try to push you over, taking you away from that center, is tremendous to try to overcome. So we want to make sure his kinetic chain checkpoints are lined up. You guys can see his feet is parallel. His knees are hip width. He's nice and drawn in. And then as he bridges up, you guys shouldn't note any deviation this way. Now, Vinny, if you let yourself collapse, what happens? Right? And then this pulls you this way?
Yes.
Right, and you guys can see there's that adduction force here, there's that internal rotation force that he's getting pulled into. So even when he's statically keeping good form, he's having to resist that adduction and internal rotation with external rotation and abduction of this hip. All right, so let's see a couple more of those. Great, Vinny, try not to let your feet turn out here, buddy. I know it is hard to resist that force. Good, keep going. Now once Vinny gets this dynamic bridge with just some lateral resistance, I can then go dynamic bridge with trunk rotation. So I'm going to have Vinny bridge up, lock out his glutes, lock out his elbows. I don't want this to be an arm pushover. All right, I want this to be a little bit of trunk rotation. Good. And back. You notice he had a really hard time keeping his hips centered. This resistance, even though it's probably only a 10-pound band, is probably still a little too much yet. Good. All right, and back down. Good. Lock out both glutes. Squeeze your glutes like you're holding a dollar bill between your cheeks. That's the cue we always seem to use. Make sure we're drawn in and keep both elbows straight so that we're not only using trunk rotation. How's that right glute feeling?
Fired up.
Good deal. All right, guys, so there you go. A little bit of lateral force, and we fire the glute max and glute medius up to a whole new level. This is a great way to progress your core exercise. You guys can go back to our ball bridge as well as our static ball bridge with trunk rotation videos, and then you can start working on this dynamic ball bridge to take it up to a whole nother level. Hope you guys enjoy this exercise. I hope you guys end up with really strong core and really strong glutes.